Welcome to Voices of Venus. I'm Chris Nielsen, and I'm here with a wonderful guest, one of the really foundational contributors to the Venus Project, one of the voices, though rather quiet and laid back as a person. You have a big voice sometimes without saying anything, which is fantastic. Borislav Zlatanov. I really appreciate you being here today, and we're going to talk about your story and how you got involved in the Venus Project and why this is important and the work that you are doing. You've done so many different things. So welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for taking this on, putting this together. It's really great to be able to talk with you.
Well, thank you. Now, let's start with origins. You are from, and I'm going to actually switch over to a screen share here because we're going to talk about the Venus Project. But over here somewhere, where was it? There we go. This is where you live, in the middle of this cool place in Bolivia and or Bulgaria. I'm sorry, Bulgaria. And I thought it was really neat to see this when it comes up on Google. It has this beautiful church. Now, do you live close to this church?
Well, that's great that you found it. Yes, I do.
Yeah, beautiful, cute little town. Yeah, that's what I love about Google. You can just kind of go anywhere. So I just went to Bulgaria and toured a little church, and next thing you know, now they drive around with the cars and they get the street views, but someday they'll probably connect to our phones and have the insides. I guess I don't know. That's the future's a wild place, and you do a lot of really wonderful things in technology, on the kind of the cutting edge of futuristic things. Um, let's talk about how you got involved, what your origins of your journey as a person, and then how that led you to discovering the resource-based economy. I think it was around 2009 according to your bio. How did you get to that point? And then we'll kind of pick up and get into the journey that you've had with the Venus Project.
Hmm. All right. Well, let's see what I can say. All right, what I can think of. I guess um, like a typical pattern for me has been that I've been not going along with the rules too much. Like
You're a
for
rebel.
example, in school. Yeah, kind of something like that.
An
Um,
incognito rebel.
yeah, yeah. And then, I was also very not pleased with the world, how the world was. I guess typically kids are not happy with some people have money, other people don't have money. Some people, have to beg on the street and this sort of thing. So I guess I was kind of always thinking, well, when I grow up, I'll always give, to the people who are on the street and are begging, something like that.
But
So
that's
I guess,
a philosophy of just being a caring, giving person. So that's at your core, which is wonderful, beautiful.
well, yeah, I don't know what exactly it is, but it has been there, and so I didn't have any idea what to do. So I was kind of getting into music and similar things. And then with the Zeitgeist movies, that's how I learned about the Venus Project, and so it clicked right away. Although it took me a while to think about it and get into it more and more. So that was like a slow, gradual kind of getting into all of that, and so I kind of started becoming more and more involved. First with translating some things. That's all I could do at the time, and then there was a need for this kind of help and that kind of help and that kind of help, like computer programming. And so we were waiting for people when people came in and then did something, but there was always more consistent need for certain things. So that's one thing that I picked up over the years with help of others. Um, that's a great thing that happened. That when you're sort of in this kind of environment where there's a lot of people who have a lot of backgrounds, you're kind of in between those people, and they know more than you, so you kind of pick up
Right.
things and you get into this area or that area, whatever you're interested in. So that's a great way to kind of learn from the people who actually have done those things. So I'm very grateful for all of that, and that's how things happen bit by bit, picking up this skill,
So
that skill.
now you said you were getting into music, and you were a trained programmer as well. And so how did you where did you go with your music, and how did you get into the programming? And you obviously have done, you do the website, you work on the website and maintain it, which is no small order in itself, with all the technology that's going on over at the Venus project. Just, you're kind of the guy that's dealing with a lot of that. So how did you get into music? Are you still doing music? And then how did you evolve with your, or where did you start with the technical uh, learning?
Well, the music, it got from simply enjoying listening to music. I always really, really, really liked music. So I guess it just happened that as I was listening, um, I started also wanting to play. So that's how I got involved and
Now, do you play
started
piano or
studying
guitar, or what's your instrument? What instruments did you learn?
guitar, and then I went to the university to study guitar and music in general. So piano is also like about play piano. So I,
Wonderful.
I play a little bit piano, but I
Well, it's
don't
good to the
really
soul.
practice.
You got to connect to your soul. That's what everybody should play, a musical instrument.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think so.
I won't get off on the whole tangent of hyperspace and the multiple dimensions, because I don't know that much about it, but I'm learning about it. Everything in the universe is connected to a vibration, and the geometry of vibration. So every human, it has an innate connection to music. So that's really interesting to me, because a lot of the people that get involved in science and technology have an origin of some kind, or at least a connection with music. I mean, Einstein was a violinist, and they attributed that, a lot of his genius, to that muscle in his brain related to what he learned on the violin. But so now, from the music, that evolved from a passion, and connecting with your emotions and your love for music itself. Then you started working when you were at the university studying music. Did you then study computer science or some other technical foundations?
No, it was another kind of soft or humanities thing. I went into English, so that's what I studied after music.
So you studied English, which is a,
Philology.
a language, right? And that's what all of computer programming is, really understanding languages. So did you go with a
Yeah,
degree
I guess.
of like English as a second language, or something like that, or just a focused, intense study?
Um, no, it was a philology degree, not a second language or something like
Oh,
that. Yeah,
theology.
but
That
for
means that
computer
you.
programming, I don't have any formal qualifications. That's purely kind of learning and doing.
Yeah. Now, theology. So you were like going to be a priest, or what were you? How did you get it? How did theology come into the
Yes,
middle
go
of
ahead.
this? We had a little delay. If you could repeat that. Are you able to hear me? Can you repeat that? We might be
No, no,
having
no,
some.
not theology. Probably threw you off there, but
We're having a
yeah,
little.
philology, English philology.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. It's the connection in there's a delay sometimes, and I don't quite hear everything. So I apologize for that.
Yeah,
Now,
I studied after the music. I studied English philology, which is basically the study of language.
wonderful. Well, in language we have syntax and organization of words, phrases, ideas, concepts. That's essentially what you're doing in programming is you're organizing functions and arrays and various things, aspects of programming languages so that you can communicate or compute different things. So I would see that as a natural, uh, kind of a natural transition, because it's a foundation. I guess I kind of think of it in that Einstein worked on his, played his violin. That helped him discover, these genius things in the way that he thinks. And speaking of thinking, this brings me to that point of Jacques Fresco. So Jacques Fresco, one of the key things about him is that he looked at things differently. He kind of opened up, for at least for me, and I imagine for you and most other people that have kind of attracted to this the Venus Project, is that he opened the door for people to think differently and explore some of what they knew and some of what they didn't know. How did Jacques inspire you?
Mhm. Yeah, I think what you said inspired me a lot. This his ability to think differently, and like offer a very different perspective on some things that typically we think in certain ways about society and kind of social issues. So um, that was very refreshing to me to just hear a different point of view. And also, I really enjoyed that he was um, based on experience a lot of the time. Like he had done a lot of things. So when he talked about whether some technical thing or um, I don't know how to approach some some problem, very often he was basing that on having done similar things in the past. So I really enjoyed that and found it like something that I could study a long time because he's got a lot of information that he's put out there. So I could study and study and study that and discover and discover and discover new things. That was like a really big, exploration for me and really really attracted me, I guess.
So one of the projects, and I hope to interview folks from the transcription team in this podcast. But one of the projects is transcribing a lot of Jacques' talks, and he would just I was kind of a savant in that he would just come out with these things that were, just philosophically made you go, that's really interesting. And he's done so much. I mean, if we live to be 100 years, maybe somebody will say that a couple things we said were pretty cool too. But he really, you're right. He had all those experiences, and lived. He lived to be 100, right? Or just a little bit under, barely, almost 100. But yeah, so he would take every I guess Isaac Newton learned when he watched an apple fall to the ground, and Einstein looked at a river and he figured out the theory of relativity. So Jacques Fresco took these experiences from life and turned them into these theories. And I want to say, would you call it an ideology of sorts?
Well, different people mean different things by ideology. It could be kind of understood as like a collection of ideas, which I would say, yeah, or it could be understood as kind of a negative, um, more belief than data sort of thing, which I don't know. I guess that's up to, I guess, the particular person how they perceive it. You could kind of study it and see like what contributions he made and enjoy that, or you could kind of go more on the belief, which I that kind of interpretation of the ideology. So I think he didn't try to create an ideology in that sense that was like, believe me, I can do it. You just have to trust me. It was, as I understood it, it was more like, okay, we have to follow certain methodologies and study things and see what we find, and whatever it is that we find, that's what we find, and we kind of have to uh, uh, you know, build more holistic approaches to things, get well-rounded views, and approach social issues from that, as I understood his teachings at least.
Yeah,
So
well,
yeah,
that was his. I encourage folks to go and check out the archives. I think they've just released a whole bunch of new archives of Jacques Fresco's talks and lectures, and they're on the YouTube channel associated with the Venus Project. And a lot of people worked really hard, Nate and others, on getting that information together. I mean, there's an intense amount of interviews that Roxanne helped facilitate, where he would just kind of go off and blurt out this stuff that was amazing, just kind of off the cuff, because his mind would be racing with so many brilliant ideas and thought experiments, if you will. So I'd encourage folks to go take a look at the archives on the YouTube channel. There's a lot of great stuff up there. And you had mentioned it's a journey. And this is one of the things that connects with me a lot, is that there is so much to think about, and so much that we have perceived that is not necessarily the right perception. And by going down this path on this journey, a lot of it is relearning things, and reassessing things, and a lot of the concepts that he's presenting is helps you kind of come to terms with that. And like you had mentioned, you kind of struggled with that. Hey, society just there's it's not right. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And in our group where we get together weekly, I think it was Will that said there's three things that screw up every community. And he's so right: money, politics, and sex. Those things will, they just create the chaos that disrupts everything. So, how have you interacted with this community over the? You've been involved since 2009, about, and you've done so many different things on this journey with the community, and the community's evolved in different, it's kind of morphed in, and it was a movement for a while, and Jack was on tour, and there were all kinds of things going. Then there were the tragedies of Jacques passing. They had the catastrophe over at the Venus Project in Florida with the tsunami, or the big storms and so forth, the floods. How did you've been involved in that throughout that whole process? How did your role with the organization change? And tell us about that experience and those insights. So
mhm.
there's a delay. Did you hear the question?
Well, I'm probably not going to do a very good job at giving an account of all those things, but it started with just translating. Yes, I did.
Keep going. That
Can I
was a
go
big
ahead?
pause. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a big delay, so I have to be patient and make sure that you hear.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. So yeah, as I was saying, it started with
Sorry, we had a little
All right.
problem with audio.
It
It's a
started
it's
with
a
translating things. Um, that's all I could do at the time. Then got into computer programming. Picked up whatever skills and like uh, information that I thought was needed at a particular time.
now so computer
Yeah.
skills. You mentioned.
After that,
Oh, go
uh,
ahead.
let me see. Uh, in more recent times, I've been getting into agriculture and ecology, um, and yeah, just whatever I thought was important to get us to the next step. Which I don't know what what it takes, but that's what's been recently kind of a focus for me.
Now, when people get involved, and we're going to share the form later on, they fill out a form, and then you or Frisos have a conversation with them. Say, hey, you're going to be a volunteer. What are you interested in? You kind of, I don't want to say vetting, but you're just like, getting to know where that person can connect in and contribute the best with their experience with the Venus Project. Tell us about
No,
that
I'm done.
that process. Wow, this is a pretty significant delay. We must have little squirrels delivering the audio back and forth, and they're getting tied up in the transition here. Um, I'll try and repeat the question was, you have been involved in various aspects of the project, as in you worked on the website, you helped coordinate volunteers, you're involved in a variety of projects. One of which is the project that's listed on the website, and perhaps we should go take a
Yeah,
look at the project on the website, because that's one of the ones that you and VKN and Frisos have worked on together, and then we'll come back to kind of the volunteer experience and how people can get involved. So tell us a little bit about the food and agricultural product that you're working on. There's current projects. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to the to the page here. Tell us about your involvement with this project over here. Did you hear me, Borislav?
yeah.
I affectionately call this project the tent.
Well, this is really started from the previous project that we were doing.
You broke up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So we were working on some previous projects, which is a larger social system. So out of that came this thing, which is really the BKN is his name from India, person from India who has been leading this project, which is really he suggested this that we do this, and he really has done all the background work to be able to develop such systems, such food systems. So this is how it got started. He suggested it as something to do. Then we started and um, just kept at it. Um, So what this is a demonstration farm which grows fish and vegetables and fruits all together in a holistic system, meaning that one part of the system helps the other parts. So it's also an experiment in distributing the fruits, meaning um, distributing it locally to the surrounding neighborhood and surrounding villages. And it's an experiment in being able to create something like this that's financially sustainable. So we've been gradually getting better and better at financial sustainability. We're um, very close to being able to have that completely. Um, and that's been a long journey of figuring out how to change the sort of things that we have to buy from the monetary system, from the market, the inputs, external inputs that we have to buy in order to keep the system running. And it's been a process of looking at, okay, what can we do ourselves so that we don't have to buy it externally. Um, so that's what step by step we've been able to reduce, in some instances, eliminate things by doing it by making those things ourselves. The biggest example of that is the fish feed, which is in a food system like this, you need to feed your fish, and that's the biggest kind of ongoing expense. So we've been able to reduce by 75% so far the fish feed with just plant leaves that can be grown um, just on the farm. So that's been great. And the whole point, sort of the larger picture here, is that um, we want to be able to outgrow the need for the monetary system so that we have like a food system that it needs very little funding to keep it going. And that means that it, it becomes possible for communities around the world and for people around the world to do this, to grow their own food in this way, um, and to not depend this much on money. Um, so in a sense, it kind of liberates this constant need to get money. So this is kind of in a nutshell. And the other bit of this is that it's something that is growing continuously. So it doesn't need to be restricted only to food. We can add other things such as housing, making various materials, making energy, um, all sorts of things, all sorts of experimentation with various technologies. Um, it's it's really more about a more kind of ecological, holistic knowledge than just focusing on food. But the important bit is that it has to be grounded on not just some thinking about how things should be done or some ideas, but um, the actual experiment, which has been a great challenge indeed. But I'm glad that we've come this far, and hopefully, with your help, Chris, we're going to take it to the next level. So that's really exciting.
Well, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to help with that, but I'll I'm glad to be sitting at the table and part of this growth. Now, with a system like this, you live in Bolivia. Is there thoughts of setting up a system like this, or do you have a system for growing food in at your home or in your area? A project similar to this, kind of a parallel universe, if you will.
Hmm. Well, yes, I've thought about it many times. I don't think I have skills, um, so I'm learning about growing things bit by bit. I haven't really gone big into that myself, just in small ways, and I've been kind of for myself, um, starting with ecology, like better understanding ecology, the larger ecological relationship between life. Um, so that's just my approach, how I've gone about it.
Yeah, there's a
So
lot of
yeah, over
there's a
time.
lot of science involved in really doing it right. That's what I'm learning from this whole experience. You know, just to share my extra skill, my special skill, I can grow weeds really well in my garden. It's a skill I developed. Anyways, I interviewed Frisos, and he's one of the other kind of partners in this project, and he's really done a lot with setting up gardens in his area, and this idea of what is being developed and refined through the work that all three of you guys and more. There's a pretty significant team behind this, that this is something that can transcend to just about anybody's community. They can take these concepts and be able to kind of start their own version of this, what they can learn and how to, create the fish food out of leaves and those kinds of things, and then evolve that into their own aquaponic system, which uses very little, little water or little resources, and it's a self-sustaining system for the most part. It takes a little work, like anything, but the beauty is that this is, you guys are doing this work so it can transcend out into other communities, which is beautiful. Now, one of the things that I noticed is that with the group, you have there's a group online, which is food, agricultural, ecology, minerals, materials, energy, and so forth. So the Venus Project is working on a variety of different projects. So we've got this one that's talking about researching uh, sustainable food systems. Then there's a whole nother part with Simon that is getting into a lot with energy, and then Frisos is with his geopolymer and other types of things. How do you see this evolving? A community requires a lot of these. It can't just they can't just have good food. They've got to have all these other, they've got to have the energy, they've got to have the social structure. And what do you see as the biggest challenges with bringing I mean, I think Jacques really was one of the folks that started people thinking, and he really energized the eco village movement. And any eco village is going to need sustainable food, energy, be harmonious with nature, etc. What do you see as the biggest challenges for these communities as they are trying to tackle all of those difficult challenges?
Well, what comes to mind is that I don't know if sort of these communities popping up all over the place, eco villages and so on. I don't know if that is what it takes to change the world, or it's something different. So yeah, I don't know that sort of this work translates into, okay, we're going to help everybody create their own community. I would be glad if it does help with that, but I don't know that that's like the pathway of, okay, we need so many of these communities. Maybe it is, maybe not. So I'm like keeping it open for where it might go. It might go in completely different directions than this what's being envisioned for eco villages popping up around the world. Maybe maybe that's a good thing to happen. Maybe it's something else. So yeah, I see many challenges for those communities, and I would like to see more of them popping up. Um, all I'm saying is that I don't know if that is sort of the end goal. Um, and money is one of the biggest things always. So if we can reduce or remove the need as much as possible to like go for needing so much money constantly all the time, I think that liberates people and makes it possible for them to dream up whatever they want to dream up. Whether it's an eco village, whether it's um, who knows, network states, cloud states, whatever it is, like wild experimentation with all sorts of different concepts and ideas. I guess that's what I would really like to see. All sorts of different social social systems coming up, and people just experimenting with those things. If they don't need, to go for all these, um, please give us something so we can do our experiment. Uh, it's still needed. Money is still needed, but if it's not as much needed, I think that will help a lot. So that's one of the main challenges I see.
Well, and it seems to that it's a in this case it's a matter of using resources efficiently. And in our society right now, we do not use resources efficiently at all. We are a very wasteful society. The example that I use in talking with, I think, Frisos and VKN, is that we we've turned into carnivores. We like our hamburgers, right? Or our beef products, if you will, or meat. And so what do? We grow a lot of corn, and then we feed the corn to the cows, and then we have this whole waste system around, you know, creating that food out of cows and so forth. Why don't we just eat the corn? It tastes good. So the getting around these wasteful processes, I think, is something that, as a society as a whole, we have to find that connection. And what I've observed is that, and it's probably a little different in Bolivia, but it's kind of I think a global trend, is that in the U.S. we've gotten away our and I'm speaking very general. We've gotten away from growing our food. We go to the supermarket, and some kids think macaroni and cheese is really food, but anyways, there's so we go to the grocery store, we get food, we get consumable food products, and we're less connected to how that was made, how that was created. And then, for example, like my wife, she has relatives, and they have, he had a good paying job as an engineer, and she had a good paying job as a teacher, but they couldn't sustain themselves on that income. They needed to be partnered with their in-laws who managed their farm and their agricultural products. So they still were in need of that. So there's like this transition from strictly agricultural, where everybody just kind of, ate off the land, lived off the land, and then that blend in the middle where they needed to still, connect with salaries and the capitalistic, aspects. And then now to kind of where we are, if you will, where people are even more disconnected. We're we're seeing that need because of lack of resources and the need for a resource-based economy. We're seeing that transition back, and I think that's really important. And that's why the work that you guys are doing is so important. I want to transition now to one of the other areas. When we first met, and I'm gonna pull up and do some screen sharing. We talked about what is the biggest problem, and we this is that original mind map. We sat down for a brainstorming session. I think it was like 3 hours, and we just kind of went crazy and wrote down all these things related to this idea of a DAO. A DAO, how do you say it? DAO. It's a DAO. But what that led to is this whole idea of, I mean, I didn't know this at the time, but you are like a mind map wizard, and you created a we're gonna make this connection here. Hopefully, you created this tool that is essentially a mind map. So this knowledge map, And what this tool, and I'm going to let you explain it in a little more detail, but what I found is that there's these, branches. You'll go off and find information, and this is kind of like a repository of all this incredible information for research and understanding and so forth. And so this idea of a mind map connecting with this transaction management of a DAO system, uh, it appears to me like this is kind of the bridge that will allow us to get, and you're not going to see my hands here because it's way over here is where the Venus Project resource-based economy is as a society for us to get there, and you're not going to see my hand over here, and this is where we are right now. So we've got this bridge between the two. We have to find a way to make that transition from a very entrenched capitalistic monetary system to a resource-based economy. And what you have started and laid some of the foundations for is the ideas. And, there's a lot of people that are contributing to these kinds of ideas as well. But implementing tools in a way that we can help bridge that gap. So if this is a long question, oh, and I lost Borislav. He will come back. But what I'm going to ask him in a moment is how he took this these ideas that he evolved, getting into technology to build this knowledge map, which is a really interesting. Essentially, it's an app of a search app and repository, and tie that with this idea of a DAO-based transaction management voting system. So while I'm waiting for him to come back on, hopefully his connection will be there. I just want to get over to a couple things about Borislav because this is about him, and here he comes back. Fantastic. I'm going to plug him in here. Sorry, we lost you. What I was getting ready to ask you in the question is how do you envision this idea of connecting transaction management with these DAO systems and voting systems with your idea of mind mapping and pulling collections of ideas and data together? I want to just kind of start right kind of here where you're working your professional life, your connection to the capitalist society and or it's connected with volunteer, and your passion is creating these systems that can help people vote. They can help them come to a consensus management, transaction management, along with knowledge repository. So my question, I'll try to nail this into a point here, is how do you see these systems as helping us with that bridge between where we are, where we here, and where we need to go?
Yeah. Well, one of the main challenges, also besides money, that you asked about, being decisions. Like, how do we make decisions? How do we arrive at decisions? Um, and that's not easy, simply because there's so much factors involved and different points of view. So it's not clear what to do very often. What this work that I've been doing on voting, um, that's a voting system where anyone can create a poll with any question, so they can pose a question to others, and then people can vote on it. Um, so it's a simple concept everybody understands. The poll, the idea of a poll that can be voted on. What's a little bit different here is that it's built on the blockchain, which means that what blockchain gives us is kind of our own home, meaning it's a place that it's your place. Nobody can take it from you unless the blockchain itself is kind of attacked or overtaken as a whole network. Um, Unless that happens, then nobody can interfere with your own place that you can create as your own kind of digital home within the blockchain, and you can set it up however you want to, and then you can have the people that you want to be part of that, and you can set up the governance systems for your community however you want to. And this is what I hope this kind of whole system is going to enable people to do. Like communities from all over the world can have their own digital space where they can decide on things in whatever ways they want to decide. Um, so the blockchain gives some advantages for that. As I said, it's your own space. Nobody can take away from you. Nobody is controlling you. You have your own home. You have control over your own home, and also everything in the blockchain is kind of set up for this more decentralized way of governance. So multiple things are kind of created with that in mind. Um, so that's a difference from other other systems where you can use tools also in other systems, and that's so great. Um, but yeah, this is specifically done for with this in mind. Um, and then maybe beyond that, as a larger picture, which I don't know if it will happen, but if it does happen, it could be something like coordination between multiple communities and deciding between multiple communities. And have a community of communities. And you can have those on multiple levels also. So, like that, there are examples of games that are developed in decentralized ways like that, various networks, um, and it depends on just how you want to do it. If you want to do it, 50% decentralized or 100% decentralized or all centralized, well, all centralized probably wouldn't make much sense for this particular thing. But yeah, the whole point is to help communities deal with this kind of challenge of decisions. And um, yeah, that's coming from, I guess I've been in the space for maybe 7 years now or something like that. Um, have a lot of observations and thoughts, and I have explored various models out there for governance and decisions and so on. This is one model in the blockchain world that I have seen that does work. I cannot say that it works, 100% of the time or like it's always great. No, there's many issues. Um, Hopefully there can be improvements to those blockchain governance systems. But I have seen it time and time again working properly. And working properly doesn't necessarily mean that um, okay, we made the best decision. It's more like okay, we don't know what's what's the right decision, and think about it. And there's the thing of nobody can sort of have their say and force a decision on everybody else. And because nobody can force a decision, everybody has to kind of agree on some decision. And it takes time, it takes soul searching, it takes learning more, it takes thinking more, talking with people, more ideas, more time. So it's a slow process until somehow someone suggests one little thing, someone else suggests another little thing. Like that, there's little small innovations along the way that are happening. And then from those, somehow people put it together, and then there's some clarity about, oh, maybe we could go that way. And that becomes like a more widely accepted approach that the community uh, can agree on. So that becomes a decision. So I kind of think that this serves well. I've heard similar thing from the Switzerland system where they have more, a lot of voting on particular social issues and governance issues. They have said similar thing about it's slow, but it's um, the end result is much better, and it ends up being faster, even though it's slow. But when you make the right decisions, you end up saving a lot of time. So it's an experiment. It's all very, very, very experimental, and I hope that it can be useful for that challenge.
Well, I think that it's going to be really important. Right now, we're entering into this revolution of artificial intelligence and a lot of disinformation. And I always get frustrated, and I'm just as guilty as anybody in not necessarily being informed of what I might be voting about. So it's like I'm gonna, I don't really necessarily know this candidate. I know a soundbite that I heard or one particular, thing that I can grab onto that resonates with me that they said. But I always thought, well, okay, maybe there should be almost a quiz before you're going to vote on something. Well, here's option A and option B, and these are factual information of what somebody stands for, if it's a person that in a voting process, or whatever the details are related to a, a process that's going to get implemented or an amendment to something. Uh, so that this system, this kind of system, will allow for that for people to be able to make more informed decisions because before they can actually vote, they have to kind of go through maybe a series of prompts to get the right information to base their decision. So I think we're going to have more commonsensical results and more beneficial results for the whole of the community by leveraging this process. To your earlier point, you were talking about the idea of managing communities, and that's the part that I think is really interesting because think of it. The way that I kind of grab onto this is think of it as that you're a member of a condominium association, essentially, say an eco village, and you don't want to necessarily be bothered with things like you kind of set rules of the snow removal. It needs to get done, or particular tasks, they need to get done, this has to happen. So you don't want to have to sit and waste a bunch of time talking about that, making decisions. You've set a criteria for that, and the system will automate that getting done so that you spend your time uh, when you're voting and making decisions on things that have a higher priority or more importance, or changing those rules around the snow removal for whatever reason. So imagine a community being able to be managed, and your best interests are taken into account already because you've already kind of done that in your setup. And so when you get bothered by having to make decisions or voting on something, it's going to be more important and it's going to be more efficient in the end, even though it might take longer. Once it finally happens, it's going to happen fast. So now take that for our folks listening out there. Take that as a bubble, and then you've got a variety of bubbles that are all doing this. Call them eco villages, if you will. Now, those eco villages, cities, village, communities are then all going to have to work in their, kind of their state, their region, and then those regions have to work within a country boundary, and then you have another boundary of like our global society, connecting the dots between all of these various systems. A DAO system allows for that to kind of be managed because, as you've explained to me, actually, the way that these blockchains they're built on a blockchain, but they kind of have different layers. And within that, now let's say that this concept for folks that aren't familiar with the network state, go check that out. It's this idea of how if in digital space we connect uh, via these kinds of systems, we could actually have more GDP than a nation. So this whole idea of connecting all these communities is pretty fascinating, and then being able to make decisions at a global level for our entire society. So this is the kind of that potential of how this all could, fan out through this mind map and make connections, and all of these relationships uh, can be, like human rights is important to us. So, kind of where the United Nations sits in is they've created all these documents and I don't want to say regulations and guidelines for how human rights should be managed via this complex ecosystem of communities and diversity. I should say diversity. So this I just see this work that you're experimenting with as something that is that possibility to connect all of these communities and communities of communities and help their transactions. It'll be a laborious project to set it all up, but to help these transactions really uh, account for the better good of society as a whole, as opposed to my community or that community, because we've created that collective consensus that we all agree on up front. Now, the trick with that is that could be all connected, but then you have this monetary system that we have to bridge as well. And one of the things that is beautiful about this, and you had mentioned games, is games are they have a tokenary system. You're going and collecting things and that kind of thing, and humans are hunters and gatherers. We have a natural tendency to want to do that. I got a badge, or I got a widget, or I got a bag of nuts, or whatever it is. So because there's that mechanism that's able to be managed with these tokens as well, you have somewhat of a social monetary system versus a financial monetary. But it connects to financial monetary as well, because people are minting NFTs and there's this whole ecosystem, Bitcoin, stores of value, and that sort of thing. So now I'm going to bring this to a question. With all of that possibility, do you see that as something that can happen or even should happen? And if so, what do you think are the first steps for us to learn and walk in that direction?
Right. Um, I would be really happy to see this kind of collaboration and coordination on a more global level. Um, that's really interesting to me to kind of think about, okay, well, how can, if there are communities in various places, how can they help one another? And I think that's where the magic is. It's not in kind of figuring it out what you're going to do on your own, which is great, but it's really about how are we helping one another, how are we working together, how are we kind of adjusting to one another. So I think that these digital systems can help with that um, a lot. Um, Obviously, we can share information, we can share your know-how, we can share that stuff. We can also share sort of material things. Um, we can share financial things also, financial value. Um, and my hope is that we can somehow decide on things together when we need to, and coordinate. Um, how exactly that could happen, I'm not sure. It could be done, as people voting on something, or there's various possible schemes. So that's why this kind of system that I talked about with the polls has developed to be not dictating how something should be done, how you should vote on this or that, what um, process you should use, or what's the right methodology. It's more like here's a tool set. And you can use whatever you want for your particular use case. Because not every use case is the same. With coordinating between communities, like there's 3 communities and they want decide on, okay, let's all together, um, you know, share water, whatever. I don't know, made up example, but let's all together share water. Well, they can decide on a process for setting aside water, conserving water, and sharing with one another. So maybe that is a way, or maybe there's some other different way. But hopefully it can grow to that point where there is this larger kind of interaction, and everybody's not, bogged down with their own problems, all day long that they have to deal with. And uh, right now, I guess the first steps to that are actually for individual people and individual groups of people and communities to delve into that, to dip their toes and to experiment a little bit with these decision making systems to see if and to see if this blockchain thing can serve as their home. Um, and yeah, I think that's kind of a starting point. And then after that, if this works well, if the first steps work well, then the next steps will follow from that, whatever the next steps are.
Well, there's a lot of possibilities and there's a lot of excitement with the potential of these kinds of technologies for bringing us together. One of the concepts that I when I talked to VKN, who was also involved in the sustainable food project in India, he said, well, we want to get beyond this need for a monetary system where we're in a distribution mode. So what has been realized through this idea of a resource-based economy is that there are enough resources if we base our economics and trade on resources. There's enough abundance for humans to not go hungry. So there shouldn't be a loss of food if we manage our resources right. There shouldn't be a loss of the materials and the things that we need for a comfortable home and comfortable living space that keeps us out of the elements in the environment. And if we take care of our environment better, it's going to be nicer to us. So the concept was really getting to that system where it's a distribution system as opposed to a monetary system. And we have to make that transition to not waste this opportunity of abundance. Now, if we parallel that with the tsunami, for lack of a better word, of the artificial intelligence revolution that is coming upon us, that's going to be changing how people work. And I think Jacques had this idea of uh, a lot of the decisions and the technology was going to take care of stuff, do things for us so that we didn't have to do them. Okay. Kind of like the plow helped us, evolve from having to dig up the dirt manually. These technologies help take away from the current work that we have. So now what is that going to, that's going to create opportunities for people to, and there's a lot of speculation, talk, debate about this, of, having more time for creative thought, artistic endeavors, and those kinds of things, which combined with the power of artificial intelligence can really be a profound thing. But that's going to transform our society and have that centralized, you know, robots and machines and this artificial intelligence type of technology kind of run the systems that we use. So it's important. The work that you're doing with the Venus Project is important because we need to take into consideration the planet aspect. You can't build a bunch of robots and have all of the materials that they're using and the processes become really wasteful and eat up that potential of being eco-friendly so that we uh, can have that abundance. So how we get there is important. And I'd like you to talk about how we get there as far as what we should be doing. So let's take an individual. They see this and they go, well, okay, I want to get involved in the Venus Project. I want to learn more. What is the most important thing for people to kind of think of at the beginning phase of getting involved and starting this journey? And then how can we help them? There's a pause, a long pause. Sorry, it's a delay in you being able to hear me.
Yeah. Um, well, there's get involved page on the website. So people who are interested out just to watch videos and see if this is something that they want to be involved in, if it resonates with them, and then they can find from multiple opportunities listed on the website. They can find whatever matches their interests and their skills. Even if someone doesn't have skills in some area, um, it's still possible to join and to help with things because every little thing helps. It's not necessarily just for kind of huge experts with many years of experience to be able to work on these things. Even someone who doesn't have any experience can still find some little things to help with, um, which is also great. And there's many examples of that happening. Everybody finds their own way. Um, so it just depends on what you're interested in. And as you interact with people, it's what I was saying earlier. It's a great opportunity and a way to learn from people who have done a lot of things. Just by interacting with them and listening to them, you learn things. Whether you want to or not, you will learn things. So I would say just see what interests you, and if you want to apply and join for that particular thing.
Well, I what I'll do is I'll put links to for people to get involved in the Venus Project in the description, so people can just click on the link and or copy the link and go to the website, fill out the form, and with that form, then it gets evaluated, looked at, and somebody will reach out to you, and then we'll figure out the best way where you can get involved. And with you saying that, I just want to really emphasize that this is a movement by default. It's not like we're trying to make it a movement. It's just happening as a movement. And a lot of people have been inspired by Jacques Fresco, kind of done their own thing because people like to do their own thing. That's the way we're wired. And they've taken a lot of these concepts and they've done their own thing. And it's a beautiful thing to see because we need more of that. At the same time, we have kind of a centralized series of projects that we're working on with the Venus Project to help move that momentum forward. And one of the examples, you don't have to be, your skills and what you are as a human, you can add value anywhere. I was talking to Eric last night. He's a really smart man. And I was like, well, Eric, where do you want to contribute? What do you want to do? And he's done some work on the transcription project, and he participates regular with this meeting. He said, you know, I want to. I think I'm just going to be a listener in the room. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. You're listening and you're learning and you're growing because that's going to affect your life to be able to do something somewhere. Maybe it's outside of the what you're listening in on. But what I appreciate is that as we work on things, and I'm going to call us scientists, even though Jacques has a interesting definition of what a scientist is, but I call you guys a group of scientists because you're asking questions and you're trying to solve problems and you're trying to think things through. And as that happens, somebody throws out an idea, And one of the things I like about Eric as an example is he throws out a golden nugget like, well, where the hell did that come from? And it's really interesting. And it just kind of, it adds to it just by thinking and paying attention and listening. That adds value in to the whole process, and what it will bring to you. I mean, and what I'm going to say, personally for me, and I'd like to ask you the same question, but for me, I've really enjoyed the learning experience because I've learned so much about gardening and food sustainability, and that there's so much science in it, from participating in the food agricultural ecology engineering group, but also in the talking with you and in depth offline here about these DAO systems and the complexities and how we can connect the dots for all of these types of systems to have it leverage a better future for everybody. And what is it that you pulled from this the most for you personally that enriched your life in that way?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, there hasn't been any one thing. It's more like being a continuous process, I would say. Um, One thing that Jacques was saying in one of the lectures, I think, is that um, when you look back at like 10 years ago, look at yourself 10 years ago and how you were thinking and how you were seeing things back then. And now you're going, oh, that guy didn't know anything. He was so naive and thought he knew it all. And then, you know, with more experience, you hopefully get some more perspective, some more wisdom. So yeah, it's really been like a process of seeing things differently. It's not just the sort of information. Yeah, there's a lot of information about ecology and this and that, but it's really how we see the world. It's been changing for me how I see the world, and probably will continue to change. And that seems like a good thing. Um, so that's what I would say.
Well, I think that's a really good point, and if we can, I think as members of as citizens of our societies, uh, taking that time to reflect and think about, um, what is the most important for our world, and what is the most important, and then work backwards from that, instead of working from like what's important for me and how I connect with the world and how it serves me, in really kind of taking that, well, what's the best for the world, and how will that work its way back to me. And then a lot of religions get into this, well, well, I'm here to serve the greater, and there's something to that that's important, in that we're blessed to be on this beautiful planet that's really special, and it's unique. There was like, okay, how many galaxies are there? How many planetary systems in this in our vast universe? And then we're on this one planet that has this ecosystem with conscious beings. We're on a really special place, and a lot of people, they're caught up in their grind of all the work and the things that they're doing to sustain themselves through the monetary system and the capitalism, that they're not able to kind of reflect on that and see where they fit in the universe and how special this really is. And I think people will get a more enjoyment in life if they're able to do that. But that's just my opinion, and I appreciate all your opinions and the things. Before we go, I want to come back to this. Oh, I lost him. So I think we're going to probably wrap it up, but I do want to put a special note. Maybe if he comes back, we'll be able to do an appropriate farewell here. But one of the things that I do want to point out is that Borislav has created this interesting knowledge-based mind map called knowledgemap.me, and it's really fascinating. There's a ton of resource up here. when you go through this mind map, I'm going to go back to home really quick and take you through it. There's these various modes in areas. So you click on education, you're going to go to relationships, for example, and then if you look down here, so this is going to talk about a reference to men a great book. I don't know if you've read this. I happen to, and then you can go and look at it on Wikipedia, that sort of thing. Sometimes it'll take you on to other resources, YouTube lectures, and that sort of thing on all the various things that are available in this mind map. So I'm going to bring Borislav kind of just pop back on here. Borislav, while you were absent there, I was explaining to them a little bit about the fascinating tool that you built here. This is really interesting and fascinating. And kind of while you've been doing all these other things, somewhere in the middle of this, you created this incredible knowledge map. Tell me about this knowledge map before we go, because I think this is important, because we're talking about a journey. It comes to getting smarter, learning about things, pushing yourself out of a comfort zone. I mean, I'm learning about hyperspace right now in string theory, and I know it's tough, it's difficult, but it's a journey. And my point is that this is such a massive collection. What inspired you? I'm going to get here's a boatload of questions of software. So, what inspired you to do this? How did you put it together? And then three, how have you found it useful, and other people found it useful? Knowledgemap.me, and I'll put that in the description.
Well, by the way, thank you for saying the previous things about appreciating the beauty of our planet. I think that's absolutely one thing that's changed for me is being able to really see and connect with that beauty of our planet far more than I could before. And my hope is that we don't have to lose it to appreciate how important and dear it is. So yeah, thank you for saying that. Now about this knowledge map, what inspired me to do it is just my interest in multiple areas, I guess, of knowledge, and somehow how can we put it together? How can we put our knowledge together? How can we organize it? Also, because I was having, I don't know, notes all over the place, and I wasn't sure how to keep track of um, various bits of knowledge that I've come across, and somehow I wanted to preserve and found them important and wanted to be able to reference later. And somehow I kept going, okay, well, that relates to this other thing and this other thing, and this other book that I read 2 years ago ties into this. It was, in my head, and I wanted a way to be able to, I don't know, get it out of my head. So this is how this happened.
Well, it's so I wrote a book last year called Your Compass List, and it's essentially about lists, and it's life skills and that sort of thing. But it's like one of the things I find is that if I want to remember something, I'll create a list. I've got lists all over the place. List. And the beauty of a list is you're taking the time, you put it together, and then like, okay, I've got room to learn something else and put together another list. And if I ever need that information, I can go back to my list and get that information. This is really fascinating what you've done. Now, is this just your knowledge that's up here, or is it connected to other people's knowledge that's related to it, like a wiki, or how does this all work? Is it just, it's basically, hey, this is my work, my bubble, my mind map?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's both. You can have your own bubble, your own mind map, and you can have collections of bubbles. So you and I could connect our individual bubbles and make a bigger bubble that, that combines our bubbles. And like that, you can have, my kind of ultimate all the knowledge of humanity. If everyone had their own bubble and connected it together, and and so it would
So
become
I could see what
common thing.
what Borislav's. I go into my bubble. I can, and I've taken the time to organize this. You can see what I've been studying and looking at. Basically, my web link, my browser links
Yes,
list, the history,
yes,
and which Safari's been really good. Oh man, I just love that ability to organize all of my bookmarks. Oh, what it just works so slick. But so I can look at your bubble, you can look at my bubble, and we can kind of cross reference as needed. Explain to me how that would work. So this is a map list. So United Nations has a list in here. Tell me about that as an example.
well, that's actually automatically generated from some lists that the United Nations has, which I simply imported, and it made it into a visual map. Um, so that's how that works. You can do that with existing lists, or you can manually add. So yes, in this case, you're exactly right. I can um, see someone else's work. In this case, from the United Nations, I can see their work, and I can explore it more visually in this kind of way, so that it's not a long list of
So now
things.
I mean, I don't want to get too far in the weeds because I want people to have a basic understanding here. So this is essentially going through searching a database of information, right? Okay. And your tool visualizes it so you can see it in its relations to each other. So I want to go to blockchains in Ethereum. I go over here. This is going to pull out a particular article, could be a YouTube channel, a wiki link, something that is reference to that information that has relevance here. Now, and it's essentially a tag or a search criteria. So you can assign a particular link, uh, a various tags that it can search. That all makes sense. Now, what if I wanted to add a new link to the United Nations one?
Mm.
How would I do that?
Well, well, if it's their bubble, you cannot add to their bubble, but you can maybe make a copy of it and add to it. Then it becomes your copy of their bubble or something like that. I guess that's how it would work, unless they grant you access to their bubble. You know.
So okay, so one of the and you bring this up because one of the projects that I worked on is with the ILO was their Encyclopedia of Occupational Health. I'm sorry, and so take a collection like that, and we would and this is a conversation we can have more depth offline, but you could take a collection like an encyclopedia or a body of knowledge. Can you like scan the table of contents and all the links associated with it and make that essentially your bubble? Because we have a nested set of links. I would imagine that there would be a similar kind of thing that you could create with that, taking a table of contents and then converting that into a mind map that links to each of these various chapters. Is that possible through your tool?
It might be possible. Yeah, I haven't thought of that, but it could be. Why not?
Cool. Well, I just got lost in your tool, and it's a fascinating idea. So if I wanted to start my own bubble, all I'd have to do is there was a button here. I thought that I got to go back a couple more. Where do we go? Oh, I got lost. Anyways, I don't want to digress too far in this, but it's a really fascinating tool that you have here with all kinds of different. I love mind maps. I mean, they're because I'm a visual person, and it seems like you leverage that same thing to kind of visualize and pull it together. If you have like to-do lists that are done in mind maps, I would hate to see them because they would be so long, right? Here's your brain in a mind map, and that's your knowledge in a mind map, which is fascinating. Borislav, I really appreciate you taking the time today, and I look forward to more conversations. I look forward to collaborating with you on the food, agriculture, ecology, energy, and all the other things that are getting talked about over there. There's some exciting new projects. There's a project in Brazil coming together through that group, which we'll talk about more in the future. There are other initiatives that are happening and collaborations. And we're also going to be doing some roundtables on topical discussions, such as energy, agriculture, and those kinds of things that are related to the resource-based economy and ways that we can work together as a society or advance our collective skills to collaborate and so forth in the future. So thank you so much for taking your time. We just scratched the surface. You are a very humble person with a wide variety of skills, and you're approaching life in the way that we need to as humans in this post AI generation economy where we're going, because we have to, in my opinion, and what many experts are saying, is that we really need to be able to be good generalists and then be able to learn quickly. And you follow that, where you like, okay, what do I need to learn? And you go out and learn. And getting out of our comfort zones to learn, you're a great example of living by that and living by good morals and standards for helping us all collaborate and work together towards a common good. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing with the Venus Project and gluing a lot of connecting the dots and bringing people and resources and technology together to advance all the things that so many people are working on over there. So thank you. I'm sure the Venus Project thanks you as well. And I'll put some links down in below that people can learn more about you and the projects that are happening at the Venus Project. I would encourage you all to get involved and participate with us. There's a lot going on, and we can all move faster if we have a lending hand. So I'm going to give you the last say here, Borislav. Anything you want to share as we depart?
Hmm. Well, thank you very much, Chris. It's been very nice talking with you. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you think that way. And I'm really grateful to you also for putting this together and for all the things that you've been doing to help us, give us a helping hand to take us forward to the next step, which has been, great. So that's maybe closing thoughts is have fun and let's get to whatever awaits us next and grow whatever has been achieved so far and go forward like that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much. I appreciate all the folks that took the time to listen to our conversation and be patient with some of our technical issues coming in and out. So thank you very much. From the Voices of Venus, we'll see you next time here. Same channel, same place, wherever this may be. Take care.